Welcome back to the YouTube home for BamaOnLine.com. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BOL, alongside site publisher Tim Watts. Andrew Bone, senior recruiting editor for BOL, will join us a little bit later on in the program. Tim, it is a Monday. It is March the 18th, and we got a lot to talk about. We got the big dance upon us. We've got Alabama football returning from spring break. Crimson Tide under Kalen DeBoer will return to the practice field tomorrow. We'll practice this week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Between all that, we've got a pro day at Alabama coming up on Wednesday. But, man, I kind of feel like we got to start with baseball on this Monday morning. After that series win, to come back and win Saturday and Sunday over the fifth-ranked Tennessee Vols feels like a statement of sorts by Rob Vaughn in year one.
Yeah, I've been watching these guys all year. They're super competitive. Baseball is such a funny sport because you get those middle of the week games, and if you only really pay attention to the middle of the week games, you get concerned. But they teed it up, waiting for Tennessee to come in. Obviously, a great baseball program. Lost the first game, second game were really good, really consistent in that. But the closeout yesterday was amazing. I mean, to get the early lead, get down 4-1. And what I liked about this team is they were instantly back in it, down 4-1. It was 4-3, it's 4-4. We're back even. We're fighting through it, and then get to the late innings. I mean, Gage hits a 3-run bomb, ends with the bases loaded. Dropped Moza, I think, was pitching. He dropped a ball off the face of the earth. That ball dropped faster than Milli Vanilli. It was. I mean, he hit that one down by the ankles. It was beautiful. To end that game again with the bases loaded against a clutch team that's very good, very competitive, and knows how to win those close ball games. So I think it's a massive statement. The season to date, I mean, they've lost to 2 ranked teams, one of them being a top 5 team, and then they've lost the Southern Miss middle of the week game. That was a battle too. They battled back in that one, which we see consistently. And Southern Miss is a good baseball team.
Yeah, and to lose Friday night with your Friday night starter out there and Ben Hess, who is your guy. I mean, it's undebatable in terms of who your number one starter is. And then to come back and win with your 2 and 3. And not just that, but close out Saturday and Sunday with 2 different guys. Very, very impressive. I think we saw some of the it factor from this Alabama team. Still a long way to go. We understand how brutal this league is. It doesn't get any easier. You start with the 5th-ranked team. Now you're just going to move into like competition in the coming weekends. But sure, big weekend for Alabama baseball. Alabama softball, too, by the way, got a much-needed win in Athens in Game 3 of that series against the Bulldogs. In danger of being swept for a second straight SEC weekend, but the Crimson Tide gets it done, hangs a 5 spot there in about the middle innings of that one. Kayla Beaver guts out another one. She's not Montana Fouts. She's not going to strike out 12, 15 batters a game, but she will battle. And that was big for Patrick Murphy's team. 2 and 4 in the SEC now, but again, Florida, Georgia to open SEC play, and another league where in softball, it won't get any easier either. What about the big dance, Tim? Wanted to get your initial reaction to Nate Oates' team following that quarterfinal loss up in Nashville to the Florida Gators, getting to go back to Tuscaloosa a little bit early. And then we see the draw on Sunday night. The Crimson Tide headed to Spokane, Washington, where it will take on Charleston in an interesting round 1 matchup. Friday evening, 6:30-ish or so. You got to get those TV channels straight, right, for the NCAA tournament. Court TV, maybe Discovery, maybe National Geographic. You got to get all those figured out. I think it's True TV for Alabama Friday night.
You got to get the Ocho. You got to download the ESPN 8. But the one thing I will say is every year I get caught with my Fire Stick where I've taken down the True app, the True Channel app, because I never use it except for the tournament. And then we get here and I'm in a scramble. So go ahead and get that downloaded if you need to. We are on I'm going to be on a tight schedule with so many games going. And you're right, there's so many channels now. And my first thought of the whole thing was, I had to do a double take when I realized Alabama, Auburn, and UAB were in Spokane. Like I had to that can't be. I was like, well, they said Auburn, and I didn't even realize UAB was there at first. I just heard Auburn. I knew Bama was there, and I went and said, what? Why in the world are they there? And then I found out UAB was. I don't know how I don't know how that happens. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily a huge deal. I just find it very, unless they're carpooling, plane pulling. I don't. And NCAA is trying to keep it green. I
Yeah,
don't.
NCAA
Yeah,
foots that bill for travel, so maybe put them all on one big charter, Tim. Fly them
dude,
all
that'd
out
be
there.
amazing to be on that plane. That would be so much fun. I bet that'd be the
How about
best time
Andy
in the world.
Kennedy on that plane too? Andy,
Andy,
Nate, and
Bruce, and
Pearl.
Nate knocking
Oof.
down the small whiskeys, on the way
Yeah.
over.
Get some stories.
That would be. I bet they'd have the best time too. I bet fans would be shocked to realize how well they got along. But yeah, this team. I mean, if you wanted a high scoring game, which Bama fans probably don't at this stage, I mean, you're probably going to get it. I mean, this is another team that likes to play in the, play in the 90s. They like to shoot, three. They shoot more threes than Alabama. Been on quite a heater. They've won, and I know it's the mid major and all that stuff, and people get caught up with it, but that really doesn't matter. I mean, you gotta go out. Bama's going to have to defend at some point. They're going to
At
have to
least
defend.
situationally, man. At least occasionally. At
Yeah,
least every once in a while, somebody step in and take a charge to kind of
yeah,
slow the ball down from just bum rushing the paint or the rim, Tim. I
yeah.
of Nate's teams at Alabama, I can't recall one where the ball just so effortlessly seems to get to the glass or to the paint. It just seems like it's there for the taking, game in, game out.
You never have that moment where the defensive momentum is there,
Or
like you said.
dictates.
Well, you
Yeah.
saw it last year with Miller, Clowney. A lot of those guys would step in and
Lottery picks taking
the
charges.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's another thing. Yeah, I mean these, fist pumping, fired up. Well, that's defense is often contagious, right?
Yeah.
One way or the other. No defense, nobody plays. You hardly ever see one guy just locking down his guy. It's going to be other guys picking up the pace, yelling at somebody's got to start yelling at people to go. Somebody's got to yell at them to get your man, that kind of stuff. I mean, they can score, but again, I mean, defense without defense, and a lot of it's just effort. I mean, it's just a lot, rebounding is effort. You don't have to be LeBron James, Michael Jordan, or any kind of athletic three to go in there and get a rebound. You can just put a butt on somebody, box them out, and get a rebound. So I'm excited for the game because I think it's going to be fun, but this is not going to be more than likely of lockdown from either of these teams.
No, you look at Charleston, Pat Kelsey, an excellent coach, spent about a decade at Winthrop up around the Rock Hill, South Carolina area before moving to the southeast in Charleston, and a team that comes in on a heater, kind of the opposite out of Alabama. Alabama losers of 4 of 6. Charleston, I believe, 12 straight wins coming into this one. And Charleston, a team that has no problem getting up and down and likes to score. And also defensively can switch 1 through 5. So that'll be interesting to watch. But what's your bigger concern for this Alabama team going into this right now? Is it psychologically? Is it physically? They've had
Yeah.
some issues health wise down the stretch with Wrightsell and Ryland and some of those things. Is it both? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, I just think mentally, I think they need to be. I mean, this is going to be the last big game that some of these guys will ever play in, possibly. I think you need to see that. There was a lot of seniors, upperclassmen. I mean, there's no lock. None of these guys are locks to be on the NBA roster next year or in the future. I mean, it's going to be a battle. You might see some two-way guys or some guys that might surprise you. Maybe like a Herb Jones. But again, Herb Jones was a fantastic defender. That ate any ball that was on the floor. So for me, I just like to see him say, this is it. Let's go out, give 100%. And I got to think mentally, Bama is sick. I mean, the one thing we have really not really talked about is who Bama's been playing. They have played. I mean, and again, I'm not saying, and I know all that. Everybody plays a tough schedule. First of all, everybody does not play a tough schedule. That's a big fat lie. Second of all, Alabama's played a really, really tough schedule. Tennessee has. Auburn has, Kentucky has, and a lot of those teams faltered in this tournament.
Top
Auburn
three
obviously,
seeds in the SEC tournament go out in the quarters. Yep.
yeah. Auburn obviously did a really good job, and I think a lot of that is the one thing this Auburn team has that none of the other ones really have consistently. Tennessee did; they didn't really show in the tournament. Is that intensity? That intensity, like we want to win, we got to win, and all that stuff. I think a little bit of that would do some of these other teams. Alabama, some good. Florida, just a terrible break with the injury because they're a really good
They're
basketball
big.
team.
Yeah.
But I think Bama has to be excited not to see these teams that they've been seeing. They have to be excited to get over this. take an extra break, no excuses, go to a different environment. In the past, they played well in those environments, and just go out there and, find the net, shoot, score, give some effort on defense, and try to get to that round of 16 and then regroup and see where you're at.
It should be a situation like sometimes it is for football where a lot of your toughest work is on the practice field or within the practice week.
Yeah.
And for the SEC teams, you look at this league with 8 teams in, this is a highly legitimate, elite type of basketball league these days. So you hope to see the benefit of that when you go up against a Charleston and perhaps a St. Mary's in round 2. And, you look at some of these leagues and you get fooled into thinking, mid majors, low majors.
Yeah.
If you don't stay up late on some weeknights and watch West Coast Conference basketball, you probably think it really is just Gonzaga and that's it. But they play good basketball out there too with St. Mary's and some others.
In theory, that could be the second round matchup for Alabama. They beat Gonzaga twice this year, just to put it in perspective. Now, I remember when Gonzaga was winning.
Gonzaga won at Rupp.
Yeah, and that's what. Yeah, absolutely, and a very strong effort in that game too. Had some bigs doing some nice things, but yeah, there's good basketball out there, like you said. You've been seeing it. St. Mary's is a team. You don't want to overlook obviously Charleston, but it's going to be more than a weekend with your sweetheart. Charleston's coming to shoot. They're going to score. I will say they're not great defensively, which helps Alabama. They're probably not going to have, guys like Pringle. We need Pringle to get in there and have a big game. And athletically, he's going to be superior probably to a lot of those guys. Just need that consistency. But I think the want to is where you have to start. Look, we knew this wasn't a super talented team pretty early on. We knew that as a team, they're pretty good together. But as far as individual talent, you're not going to see a lot of guys in the mock draft. There's not a lot of that. So we knew that. But the effort, when your shot's not there, and I think that's one of the problems. When you have guys that think offense so much, they're really just ready to shoot. You know what I mean? And if their shot's off, it definitely affects their defense oftentimes. I think you have to be, man up to come up with the term. I think you got to play better defense when you stink on offense. I think if you're hot.
And I don't think there's any doubt they get their dauber down at times when the shots, because they were fine early in the game against Florida. But then when Florida answered with that barrage on the other end and the shots didn't go down as much, it's not just that Alabama gives up points. I know what has to be maddening to Nate is continuously this team at times against teams with guards like Pullen and Clayton for Florida just get rolled in transition. That kills him to see these breakouts off the defensive glass. And I understand there's times where you're trying to keep possessions alive. You're going for tip outs. You're going to the offensive glass and you get down in numbers. But there are plenty of times where it at least appears that this team loses its focus in terms of getting back even because it's not going well on the offensive end.
Yeah, I think they get in their feelings. I think when they're shot, they're disappointed in themselves, and they, shooters want to shoot. They don't necessarily want to play defense, but this is it. I mean, this is it. This is basically for some of them, it's their defining moment at Alabama. The last game they're going to play at Alabama. I mean, Lord, no telling what's going to happen in this portal in, portal out, and everything else. So, I mean, this group should enjoy playing with amongst, on the same team. I was about to word that very poorly, but these guys should. It's a good group of guys. If they get together, stay focused, I think they can do what they need to do to win this first game and then turn that focus to the second game.
This feels a little bit like a couple of years ago when Bama went to San Diego and got a Notre Dame team coming off a grueling first 4 matchup. And the Irish still got the job done against Alabama in round 1 of that one. Perhaps this time will be different against, again, a Charleston team, as you said, Tim, likes to run, likes to score, perhaps not as sound defensively as some of the teams that Alabama saw later in the season. Going to be an older team, right? Most of these mid-majors, these low majors, once they get to the NCAA tournament, they're going to be junior, senior, grad transfer dominated. But that's another area where Alabama shouldn't have, to me, a lot of the issues they have because they are older. But I guess it still takes, whether you're a grad transfer or a freshman, it takes a wiring because like you said it earlier, Brandon and Noah last year were first year college players, and they were wired in a way, they were connected in a way where communication wasn't an issue, even though they were young players, and where doing the things physically that you have to do sometimes, stepping in, put your foot on the baseline and take a charge. Maybe that's what we'll do for the hat giveaway, Tim. We'll do like a drawing. Whoever predicts the player that will take a charge on Friday night wins the hat. Maybe we've come up with a
We might not
contest.
give that hat away till next year, till next basketball season. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it's effort. I don't think they're great athletes and defensively. I mean, Miller and Noah are two of the thinner players that you're going to see that were willing to do that stuff. And again, that's translated to the NBA for Brandon Miller. I mean, you see him doing it there. I think it's want to. Do you want to do it? Do you want to stop? Do you want to go home? Do you want to end your college career? Do you want to, or do you want to continue playing? Do you want to continue playing? Alabama's a 9.5, 10-point favorite in this game. So people expect them to win. They expect it to be high scoring. I think I saw the Charleston defense is close to 180 in defensive efficiency. Yeah. You think Bama's bad. They're like 110, 115. These guys are at almost 180. So they have a chance here to score, which is what they do best. I mean, that's the thing that these teams beating Alabama's done, has kept them from scoring. I mean, the late run that we saw was kind of deceiving because that Alabama really struggled. I mean, I don't even remember what the run was, but it was a lot to not nearly enough when Florida kind of put that game away.
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement on this. It's psychological for this team at this point rather than physically. You can't really use the Charles Bediako thing, I think, in either of these potential first two rounds. Now you get to Baycoat and maybe North Carolina, in that Sweet 16 potential matchup. Yeah, then you could have some
even
problems
with Charles
there.
on this team, he's not a perimeter defender. So I mean,
the ball is just
there's only a.
And I know it's nice to have that guy though at the rim, right? If you do get beat, but you still got to stop the damn ball, right?
And also, as much as they're at the rim, I feel like Charles would have been fouling out pretty quickly. I mean, you can only jump into his body so many times and not get 5 fouls. So, yeah, I think this team, again, I think it's got to be, we got to want to stop them. We got to stay in front of them. Charleston's going to have a lot of movement. They're going to have a lot of guys looking for open looks. And again, I mean, it's a task, but it's the NCAA tournament. I love it. I love this weekend. I mean, I know that the upsets that happened, was it one number one seed actually won their tournament. UConn, I guarantee you their practices are pretty physical. I think you see that with the way they rebound and do everything. But also, I think this team's kind of like, for Alabama, I think it was kind of built for offense, hoping the defense would come along, and it just happened. But I've still enjoyed this season. I still think it's one of Nate Oates' best jobs from a talent perspective. The SEC, there's a lot of games Alabama plays where I don't think Alabama has the most talent on the team, on the floor. So it's been a good run, but it will be dictated. You lose this first one, we'll probably all have a different feel. You win these two, you come out of Spokane.
Great year.
Yeah, you'll be able to gripe and wonder why they didn't win it all if they lose.
It really is an event where your entire narrative of your season is shaped on as little as 24 to 54, 72 hours. It'll define the entire season. Look, we've talked about this before. Forget about seeding. Pay attention to the draw. I mean, that's what matters most. And I think on paper, it's a nice draw for Alabama. And also even big picture. And I know Carolina's very good potentially down the road, but the team I still wouldn't want to see regardless is UConn in the 16. And the potential is there to, if you get there, that's looking way, way ahead, perhaps not see the Huskies in that West.
How about Auburn
region semifinal?
Auburn, my goodness.
Yeah.
My goodness. I mean, Auburn, dude, even Alabama fans are united. Like, Auburn got screwed. I mean, the SEC tournament, winning it has to mean something, especially in a year like this. And a 4 seed, that's probably okay. But then also to draw the number one team in the tournament in the round of 16, to have to travel to Spokane, to have Alabama and UAB there, it's like showing up thinking it's your birthday party, and then 2 other parents are there. It's a 3-person birthday party. You're kind of like, what the hell is going on? So,
Yeah.
but I'm excited. You made a good point. Sports is so much about that last game of the year, and
Yep.
I can't do that. I can't base the whole season because only one NFL team's going to be happy. One college football team's going to be happy. You got to kind of enjoy the ride, or what's the point? I mean, all the people that say they only watch the NBA in the playoffs. Well, you might as well do that with every sport if that's all it comes down to. But I've enjoyed this team. They've been frustrating, but at some point I realized,
They are who they are.
yeah, especially after last year's team.
Yeah.
The talent deficit was considerable.
Also, congratulations to Alabama women's hoops. Alabama women and men both in the big dance. Christy Curry's team has kind of made it a habit here of qualifying for NCAA tournament play. The women's team will take on Florida State out in Austin in round one action. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that as well. And boy, again, congratulations to State of Alabama hoops in general. Bucky Ball with Samford, UAB, Auburn, Alabama, hell of a representation from the state.
That's how we grew up. That's how we grew
It
up.
really
We grew
is.
up Wimp, Sonny, Gene Bartow. That's literally
South
UAB.
Al would do it, every once in a while.
Yeah, a peanut butter jelly. The boys down there that had the good NCAA team.
Ronnie Arrow.
Their basketball was so big here. I mean, it's hard for other younger people to understand, but those are Sweet 16 teams UAB, Alabama, and Auburn had. So very heated. So yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations to Alabama football too, Tim. Going to return from spring break. The Crimson Tide under Kalen DeBoer set to return to the practice field on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday practices this week, and 3 practices into the book. So as we get through that acclimation period, Tim, and we start to get into full pad work and looking ahead to some upcoming scrimmages, give me a guy or two that you maybe continue to have your antenna up for, or maybe you just in the last day or so have given some thought to a couple of guys that you want to see and hear some progress from.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big names that we're used to, Justice Haynes, you want to see him, but you kind of know what he is. You know how talented he is. I'm really interested to see Josh Cuevas, the tight end. I think maybe my dude just slid under the radar with one of the, the edit, the normal person's edit we're not used to seeing. Just committed to Bama on the heels of Keon Saab, and enrolled, averaged 40 yards a reception at only 4 receptions, but still. It's a lot of yards, 160 yards. And I've heard a few good things, a few people mention it. I think he will have a little bit of an advantage because, obviously with Caleb working at the wide receivers, Caleb Odom, you're going to have you're not going to have him inside. You got CJ Dupree, and then you got some guys somewhere that's got to fill that Amari role from when he left, not Black. So I think maybe he's a guy that I'm pretty excited to see and hear more about.
Yeah, defensively, right? You talk about Saab coming in from Michigan to pair up with Malachi, give you some foundational pieces there. Damani Jackson at the one corner. Really interested to see how that puzzle. You like to talk about puzzles here on the show.
Yeah.
I'm ready to see how that puzzle fills in. Is it maybe 1 or 2 of the newcomers? Is it a guy like Red Morgan? Is it a Peyton Woodyard? You look at those corners, Jalil Hurley. Are we forgetting about a returning player? Is it Xavier Brown? So many guys on that back end that could factor into things. Mbakwe, Zay Mincy. It's a big list. Yeah, Xavier Brown.
Yeah. We haven't even mentioned him yet. So I think there's a lot of talent. There's more questions than answers, but I do think the answers are there, right? I think you've got to just again, you just got to get them lined up like dominoes, schedule, figure them out where you want them, have them put in their positions. And again, just to get to that, right now, I like the secondary from a talent standpoint. Experience isn't great as far as a lot of experience, but there's a lot of talent there. And I do trust that this system, and I think there's going to be a little flashback from the Nick Saban back end where it's so confusing and learning and all that. I think this is going to be a much simpler back end that you're going to see from Colin Hitchler, who, by the way, had a baby this weekend. I saw on Twitter.
Congratulations
to Coach. Yeah. And Mo Lindquist. I think that's going to kind of keep it a little bit more simple, put them ahead of you. And of course, Kane Womack's going to have some scheming and stuff he's going to do, especially with his safety. So I think it'll be active. I just don't think it will be as confusing, because if this was a Nick Saban back end, I think our discussion's a little different. I think we're trying, figuring out who's going to pick that defense up so fast and everything else. So
How about spring break? Now we annually see guys during that week training, working out on their own, working
yeah,
with
traveling.
positional coaches, making trips to make it happen, or maybe staying in Tuscaloosa instead of going home. A guy like Miles McVay, I saw training during the break at the big man camp for offensive linemen. So back in Texas, we saw it with Bubba Hampton and Jalen Hale. It used to be guys couldn't wait to hit Cancun, or back in
Yeah.
our day, Club La Vila down there at Panama
Don't
City
get Rusty
Beach.
Manziel. Don't get Rusty Manziel. No,
Yeah,
you mentioned Club La Vila, and Rusty
it
just
fires
right
them up.
now. Rusty
Yeah.
just poured some of his coffee out. That thing closed down, and my boy Rusty Manziel, he took a week off to mourn. So
I mean, a
yeah,
lot of these cats, man, you saw Jalen, right? Milrow, just they at least spend a portion of that time trying to continue to sharpen
I
their
think you
their
can do.
craft.
I think you can do both. I mean, we see Jerry Judy go home and run in the sand. You know what I mean? I'm sure he. Well, I don't know if he's a beach person. Get in the beach. I'm not, but he. I mean, I'm sure he
Miami,
got.
yeah.
I think you can still get a 2-hour workout in. And especially when you get a chance to work with somebody you've known, probably most of your life or trained with before. So it's always good to get that second set of ears in there and go home where you're familiar. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier to work out when you're going home and your mom's, washed and folded your underwear and cooked dinner for you. You know what I mean? That's probably a pretty welcome thing for a lot of these guys to get home and get that comfort factor.
Yeah, and you can work with other folks who, after you've had a couple of months in the program going through the developmental process, maybe they're able to see things better. They haven't seen you in 3 or 4 months, and now we're going to look at your pass set, or we're going to look at
Sure.
your hips in and out of breaks, your route running, your throwing motion, things like that. It never hurts, I don't think,
And it's also a good
to get
time to
another set of eyes on it.
this is where you get a group of guys, 8 to 10 guys. And we see this where they're at different colleges, but they grew up together playing 7-on-7 together, AAU basketball together, played on the same whatever summer baseball team. And they're able to get together and hang out. I mean, of course, that's where it starts every Twitter portal rumor as well, like Justice Haynes. Justin Haynes is in Georgia. His parents live there. Relax. But yeah, those guys get together and hang out, and again, you see the respect, the players and the friendships they have after the game when you see them talking, hugging, and all that kind of stuff. I think fans sometimes forget, they the bonds that connect each other. So yeah, it's good to go home and also show out you're faster than you were the last time I saw you. You know what I mean?
Never hurts, for sure. Hey,
And
we want to
it's also good that I'm not sure being at that beach is the best place. I mean, Miami banned South Florida banned spring break, basically, right?
Daytona, I know years ago pretty much
Well,
did,
this
yeah.
day I saw Miami had a whole little thing on Twitter saying, "It's not us, it's you. We don't want you here. Don't come back." So they shut it
And they got
down.
the
But
cash down there. They don't need it.
yeah, well, they just a lot of drama. I mean, you get
Yeah,
500 kids on a beach, half naked and drunk. Something's
yeah.
going to happen.
You go from Palm Beach County south, pretty liquid down that way of South Florida. Hey, want to remind you, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the BOL YouTube channel. If you already have, we certainly appreciate you doing that. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all of our YouTube content as it drops right here on the YouTube home for BOL. And of course, you want to hang out with us right there at BamaOnLine.com, the roundtable, our premium message board. That's where you're going to learn everything as we know it. You're going to learn about it as well on the roundtable at BamaOnLine.com. And this guy we're going to bring on right now, senior recruiting editor, Andrew Bone, on a Monday. Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
All
Like I
right.
said, spring break's over.
You weren't supposed to be on
it's
spring break.
Yeah.
Hey, before
my kids, I think.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I was just saying, my kid's spring break's not till next week, so I wish they kind of did it at the same time. But
Andrew
whatever.
took his this week, to be clear. He just got back from Panama City Beach. Look at him.
Club La Vila.
Freshly tanned. Look at him.
Oh, yes.
Ready to
Look at all
rock.
that tan. I got a lot of colors.
Always love having Andrew on the show. We're going to get into some recruiting talk. Obviously, even with spring break, that doesn't slow down for us at BamaOnLine.com. Before we do that, though, guys, wanted your thoughts on Pro Day at Alabama coming up on Wednesday. Now, coming out of the combine a couple of weeks ago in Indianapolis, we learned that Kool-Aid McKinstry had a Jones fracture he was dealing with. So the hope is that he'll be good to go for Pro Day at UA coming up this week. JC Latham did on the field drills, but did not run the 40. So perhaps we've got those coming from Big JC on Wednesday as well. And Jace McClellan too, as far as run the 40 and those type of things, perhaps going to see that. Does Dallas Turner, any chance, Tim Watts, that Dallas Turner puts on anything resembling football shoes at this Pro Day, or does he just stand on the business that he conducted in Indy?
If he does, he's just trying to show out. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing. If I'm JC Latham, I don't run either. I think JC did enough with his movements to lock in. I don't know how much a 40 time can help him. This draft is looking to be so quarterback and wide receiver heavy that I think your tackles could fall. Him and the Notre Dame guy Alt are two of the guys everybody's looking at. Oregon, Washington has guys, but they're all falling out of that top 6, maybe top 8 range, which we usually don't see. So I'm not sure how much. I don't think if he ran a 4.52 that JC Latham's going top 3 anyways. They're getting their quarterbacks right. So yeah, Kool-Aid's the one I'd love to see him run just because I think he can help his stock. But again, I think if he's not healthy, I still wouldn't run.
Andrew, you've been around Alabama recruiting for 20 plus years. You've been around Alabama football for a lifetime. Is it fun for you to kind of watch these guys go through this draft process and following them like you have since a young age in most, if not all cases, see how they've developed or how those things that you initially saw when they were 9th, 10th, 11th grade high school football players have kind of matched up to where they are now?
Yeah, you kind of hope the guys that you're hyping up in high school, make it to this point where they are getting seen by NFL scouts, and and they're not, they never played it down, or they they transferred 3 or 4 times. It is pretty special to see these kids, especially this class, because this is a class that went through that COVID year in 2020, where a lot of kids didn't get seen. You're basing your rankings off of film. College coaches weren't out on the road evaluating. So you have this class that a lot of these guys came in, and there was a lot of hype. I think Alabama ended up signing that number 1 recruiting class then, and Dallas Turner, JC Latham, all part of it. And I think that just seeing these guys go through these workouts, being projected first round draft picks, is obviously pretty cool to see. So looking forward to seeing what I'm looking forward to seeing on Wednesday is who else is going to be out there that's returning to the team next year. Are we going to see Jalen Milroe out there throwing passes to Jermaine Burton, or are we going to see some of the defensive linemen do some drills against some of the O linemen? So it's going to be interesting to see who else is out there working out that might get their eyes on, or might have some GMs and some college or some NFL coaches watching them on Wednesday.
Yeah, if Austin Mack throws on Wednesday, our website will melt. Right? It's not going to happen, but
don't even wish that. So real quick, don't even wish that on us. I mean, literally, we had a coach leave basketball announced on the middle of a Saturday. You know what I mean? I'm looking at Charles Powers' rankings from that class. Glad Andrew brought that up. Yeah, JC Latham at 7. We had Kool-Aid at 13, and he had Dallas Turner at 24. So I'd say that, Terry Arnold at 30. So I would say the Bama guys that he hit on, we did a really good job of ranking those guys. There's obviously misses mixed in. I mean, Tommy Brockermeyer, who retired. But overall, I mean, these guys, like Andrew said, these were guys that I think if you had to pick when we did our accolades, who were we most excited about? Who do we think had the best prospects? I think Latham and Kool-Aid certainly were up there. Who had the biggest upside? I can guarantee you we both had Terry and Arnold as one of the guys. I know Travis loved him. And then Dallas Turner, I think we all knew. The question with Dallas is he's not really that 6'4", 6'5" edge. And it turns out, he's more of a jack linebacker and a really good one. So I would say Alabama's class did pretty well, especially as Andrew pointed out, the COVID, the no evaluations, the drawn out class where you had you remember Alabama's had commitments like Drake May and them. It looked up and it was Deontay Lawson. I remember I kept making that joke, Travis. I was like, hello, is that Fresh Prince gift where he's just standing there for 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Deontay just stood tall as the only Bama commitment. And we were like, be patient. Scott Cochran had left, right? Scott Cochran had left. So they're figuring out that. Then they're figuring out how to do a Zoom. Somebody had to teach Nick Saban how to do a Zoom. So all that happened. And then oddly enough, I think it was Aggie Hall, who broke that barrier. And then they just started pouring in. So,
yep.
Crazy class, and they're gone.
Yeah, that was and I think that was also around the same time where Pete Golding posted an elephant emoji that
it was a
commitment in it. It didn't happen for like 4 months, and it was I think that was Kendrick Blackshire, I think, or was that the next? I can't remember if that was that class or the class.
Pete's elephants were iffy. All right, Pete's elephants would.
Pete's elephants were actually they were actually forgetful. They say elephants never forget. Pete sometimes would forget.
Pete would kick them out there when they said they're coming, not when they're coming. So, what I mean?
Then sign elsewhere 6 months later.
Yeah. So that was that's a good memory. That was a wild time, a lot of anxiety. Scott literally thought that Scott Cochran leaving had changed Bama's recruiting that much. Now, look, it was uncomfortable because they spent so much time setting up the Zoom, getting their program together. Once they got the program together, it was off and running, but it took a while to get the whole Zoom set up, the sports, Baloo and those guys to get on the program to sell it. So it was a wild time. I'm glad Andrew mentioned that.
So we talk about getting back into the swing of things, and certainly that's the case for Alabama football recruiting. Andrew, a couple of potential linebacker types this week with some commitment dates that are set that I'm sure you're paying attention to.
Yeah, you look back a couple of weeks right before spring practice started. Alabama was able to flip Antonio Coleman, and then over the course of that next week, they were able to get a couple other commitments in Zamir Smith and then Derek Smith. Second week of spring practice, and you're having 2 more guys that are about to announce decisions that could be in favor of the Crimson Tide. On on Wednesday, you have Daryl Duke Johnson out of Dodge County High School going to be making his commitment. Has kind of a top group. I would look more so at Alabama, Florida State, Tennessee. Florida State's been considered the heavy favorite for him for a long time. Now, that was until he received an offer from Alabama a few weeks ago. This is a kid that grew up an Alabama fan, called it his dream school. And the running joke on BOL is, well, if it's a dream school, the kid's probably going to go elsewhere because it's happened before. It doesn't happen all the time, though. So I think we got to break that curse somehow. So Duke Johnson is going to be announcing his commitment on Wednesday. 6'3", 205-pound. Linebacker / safety, could play either position. I think he's recruited more so as a linebacker, but Georgia's been on him a little bit here lately. He visited Georgia a few days ago, and I think there's certainly some interest. I don't think Georgia's offered quite yet. I don't think that really matters regardless because he, like we said, he grew up an Alabama fan, been to Tuscaloosa a few times. He's going to be making that decision on Wednesday, and then you have Luke Metz, who is another 6'3", 210-pound linebacker out of Georgia. Going to be announcing his decision on Sunday, and he's got a few visits still to take. Alabama on Thursday, and then he's going to visit Ole Miss on Saturday. Told me the other day that he should have all the information he needs on all these schools to make that decision this upcoming Sunday. And he was at Michigan this past weekend. So those are three schools that are very high on his list, along with Ole Miss and Duke. So we'll see what happens.
Tim, you've talked about this staff with Kalen DeBoer checking boxes now on this sort of box checking tour. A couple of guys from the state of Georgia, I guess that would check another box potentially.
Yeah, I think they're just going to go after the guys they need. I mean, I think that's one thing, and I'm not saying anybody else doesn't do that, but this isn't your normal, like with Alabama, it was kind of, you knew what they wanted. You knew they wanted big 340-pound offensive linemen. That's going to change. When you're looking at system fit, especially at linebacker, everybody we talk about is a guy that can play on either side of the ball or multiple positions on defense. I mean, you look at the commitment list, the recent one, Derek Smith basically could play on either side. Zamir Smith is another guy that could be on offense. And not only could they be on either side of the ball, but they also can play multiple positions in their position, the secondary. So I think when you look at a Luke Metz and makes sense. I mean, that Swiss Army knife type guy. Same for Duke Johnson, where they fit their scheme pretty well and what they want to do. But yeah, Duke's got a ton of offers. I think that I think top 30 ranking in the country or something, top 50 certainly is where he fits in. But, obviously a guy where they want to keep momentum. And you always want to have guys in Georgia, right? Georgia's been good to Alabama. And the thing about state of Georgia is Georgia can't sign them all. They could pick 25 guys. They can sign their whole class from the state of Georgia, and there's still talent left over.
Brent Key's done a nice job at Georgia Tech, but the point is taken. If the Alabamas, the Ohio States decide they want to go in there, they're probably going to be pretty effective in doing so. And absolutely, why would they not want to go to the state of Georgia? Andrew, with spring practice cranking back up, certainly some anticipated visitors to Tuscaloosa. Who sort of fits that bill here maybe in the coming days?
Yeah, I mean, you look back 2 weeks ago, they had over 100 recruits on campus, a lot of big names. Juju Lewis, that was probably the biggest name recruit that was on campus 2 weeks ago. And now you get into this second week of practice, and it's a pretty extensive list throughout the entire week. You have guys on campus that are arriving a little bit later today. Gerard Pringle, who is a top 100 running back out of Florida. And then you also have Abdul Sanders, who is a linebacker out of Mater Dei High School out in California, which has been pretty kind to Alabama the last several years. Bryce Young, you had last year Xavier Brown, Demonic Jackson. So Alabama's going to continue to hit the West Coast pretty hard. And Abdul Sanders, this is his second visit to Alabama since the new staff arrived. So making that cross-country trip to Tuscaloosa certainly shows there's a lot of interest there. He is one of the first offers for Alabama. So those are the two guys that are on campus today and tomorrow. And then you kind of get into a little bit later on in the week. That list starts to grow pretty impressively with guys like A.K. Deere, who is a top 100 running back, number 2 running back in the country out of Mississippi. You have Dejon Lee, who's a top 5 corner out of California, Mission Viejo. And then you get into the weekend, and that's when some of the bigger names end up arriving with David Sanders, who's the number 1 offensive tackle in the country. Ty Jackson, who I know that's one of Tim's big studs in this class, number 1 linebacker out of Florida, and the list is pretty impressive throughout these next few days. So definitely go to BamaOnLine. We have the complete list. We got a great breakdown right now on the front page of who all is going to be in Tuscaloosa this week and kind of where things stand in their recruitment.
Tim, we talked about this a little bit here in the last week or so, but man, this feels almost like a melting pot of commitment potential and visitors. And whereas with Nick Saban and the previous staff, in some ways, it still felt like more of the evaluation process or the filling out process. I guess it's head on a swivel time for you and Andrew as far as commitment potential. It feels like almost that some of these could come at any time.
I think we've been head on the swivel since the portal was invented. And then you had the portal, then you had Saban retiring, then you had the portal, and then you had coaches being hired, then you had Grubb being hired and then leaving. So we've had a consistent, even this weekend with news on a Saturday, But yeah, I think you're looking. I mean, you remember Saban used to have these commitments back in March, in February, March, and April. A lot of them didn't end up in the signing class. That COVID kind of they always loved the camps, but COVID definitely, after COVID, they definitely went basically camp heavy. Guys that would come to camp that wouldn't work out, they would get a big red X next to their name in a lot of cases. But yeah, these guys coming in and pushing for commitments. A lot of these guys they've known. I mean, Duke Johnson's a no-brainer, right? Luke Metz isn't a guy that Kane Womack just took his first look at, right? He's probably been evaluating, because that's the one thing I think we forget is Kane Womack was looking at a lot of these Southern guys because he was the head coach at South Alabama. So he's already been extremely busy. Also, you got a lot of personnel guys in the back office who are from Georgia with Georgia connections who are familiar with these guys. So obviously, like with Abdul Sanders, Dijon Lee, those are guys' connection. Courtney Morgan's been involved with them, helping recruit them from when he was at Washington. And Dijon, and again, Andrew's right. I love my the linebacker. If you could get a felony on a football field for being violent, it's him. He is right there with Ruben in those. He hit, and it's not anything dirty. This dude's leverage and strength through his tackles is bananas. It's not like he's hitting them late. He's literally chest to chest, squared up, legs bent, boom. The explosion's amazing. But Dijon Lee, that's a freaky dude. Now you got a guy in the secondary, almost 6'4", legit barefoot. He can run. He can do a lot of things. But obviously that carries over from the former Washington staff. So the merge we're seeing is the Southern connections. Robert Gillespie, Freddie Roach, Kane Womack, those guys meeting with the West Coast guys, Kalen DeBoer, Courtney Morgan, and all those guys coming together. And then you bring a little bit of the North with Mo Lindquist and Colin Hitzler. So you got quite the merge. We got a little tornado brewing here.
Andrew, is there a specific positional area that you see and think, man, this lines up really, really well for 2025 in terms of maybe one of Alabama's more pressing needs from a positional standpoint? I know you guys have mentioned linebackers already. I mean, we got a couple of guys that are making announcements this week at the position, Timms and Love, with the felony linebacker. I don't know what we'll refer to that from now on, but
he definitely needs a nickname.
What do you see as a position that's like that? Maybe that was for Andrew.
Well, I think offensive line certainly a position of need in this class, especially offensive tackle. You look at last year's class when Alabama signed 3 basically interior offensive linemen. Now a couple of those guys could end up playing on the outside. Casey Poe, Joe Ionata, those are bigger guys. They're both guys that are in that 6'5", right under 300-pound range. So you could easily see those guys potentially move over to tackle. But offensive line wise, I think is a priority position for Alabama in this class. And you look at a guy like Jackson Lloyd out of Carmel High School in California. He's certainly a top target for Alabama. Has been to Tuscaloosa already once this year. Plans on coming back this spring and again for an official visit. They're going to have a couple big-time 5-star offensive linemen on campus over the next couple months. David Sanders, who is number 1 offensive tackle in the country, going to be here this weekend. Ty Haywood out of Texas just scheduled an official visit to Alabama in late May. So I think offensive line is certainly going to be a priority position for Alabama in this class. Now, they don't have any O-line commitments just yet. So, when are they going to get their first one? Maybe this spring. And they got a lot of guys that are going to be coming in over the next, really over the next month.
Hey, Tim, we've got Christian Sykes here in the comments asking, do you think Alabama dips back into the portal for another cornerback or 2 when that April window, I guess, comes back around?
I think it just depends on how well this group does. I mean, again, we discussed this last week. If Damani Jackson's one of your cornerback ones, Red Morgan fits in that safety group, you're feeling a little bit better about what you have, especially with Malachi Moore back there. I mean, I think you want experience if you can get a guy. I don't think you ever can turn down a guy who can start for you at the big positions, defensive end, offensive tackle, quarterback. That's just speaking in general. Cornerback, those positions, if you get a starter, somebody that can start on your team in the portal, I think you have to take him. But I also think they got guys they like. But yeah, if the right guy falls into the portal, I think every position they're looking. I'd be surprised with quarterback for the most part, but I think every other position, I think they will be looking in the portal and doing their due diligence. I mean, that's the first thing they got to do. How does he fit in? How does it affect other people? There's so many things that fall in with that portal because you can rock the boat pretty quick with the wrong portal guy, you know?
Yeah, and you hope you just stay healthy too throughout the spring. An injury or two can impact that. You obviously don't want to see that happen, but if you get through the spring healthy, you're in a great spot as far as developmental type guys at a minimum. I mean, Xavier Brown, Mbakwe, Zay Mincy. If these guys aren't ready to play in 2024, I feel pretty damn confident they're going to be ready in 2025. And I feel confident that one or more of them will probably be ready to play in 2024, but there's so many variables in play that you can't forecast just 3 practices into the spring to feel good about getting too definitive about those kind of statements. We got Jamie M here in the comments. He says, Bone, send T Watts a picture for his background. And Travis, send me a hat, bro. And the thing is, Tim, I know you've got a banner now, but we're still customizing.
It's so
that.
close. It's so big. I mean, I could go higher. I mean, I try to keep the view on me.
Look at them. Look at those game balls.
I need the view
one up there from
on
Coach
me.
Fran.
Unlike Travis and Andrew, I know everybody wants to see me.
Auburn game balls up there. Yeah,
I thought you were like in a big king chair, like the whole.
He is in a throne. Yeah, it's a suit. There it is. Yeah,
I don't know what that. That's what I need.
Yeah,
the king has no background.
Yeah.
So we'll find high school pictures of y'all and put them back there. If this keeps going, we'll find some wife beaters at the beach drinking a natty light. There's a 17.
There's TR and a mohawk haircut if you go way back.
Oh, Andrew's
but I like that
Andrew's
one now
because I had hair. Or a mullet. He's had
you'd see a very scrawny guy and a mop on his head.
Bama bangs.
Bama bangs.
Bama bangs.
Now.
Bama bangs.
There you go. All right, guys. So what else we got in store right there at BamaOnLine coming up? Obviously, March Madness is going to be huge. Spring football returns, pro day, recruiting, just never stops. Baseball, softball. It is a humming time of year, Tim Watts.
Yeah. I mean, you got a lot going on. Bama has 5 commitments, still in the top 10. I think they're ranked 7th in the team rankings. You know, last time I looked, I think pretty much everybody ahead of them had more commitments right now. I think Georgia's has a really good class going. LSU's a class. They're putting together a really good class as well. But Bama's in that mix for a top 5 class right now. It's so early to get into that because the rankings change, players go up and down. We've already seen that, but I think again, we've said it before. We've said it many times. Well, I think you got to be happy where you're at right now. You know, overall as an Alabama fan, you shouldn't be griping too much. You got to. I know y'all are used to all those Final Four banners Bama's hung up, but that's sarcasm. But they are in the NCAA tournament, which was not always a given.
How about Nate getting the extension? Hey, that's a real positive with all these jobs open right now to have him locked down before the tournament even starts. Good work by Greg Byrne once again.
Yeah, absolutely. Get that everything opening up. Bama baseball team wins a series against a very, very, opponent, World Series contender in Tennessee. Football is back. Charlie Potter is going to see action this week. Don't know if Travis is going up, but Jimmy, Clint going up for an open practice.
There is on Thursday. There will be a media viewing. I believe, it's Thursday. So we'll have that covered for you at BOL as well. So plenty of great stuff with us at BamaOnline.com. Be sure to check out the Roundtable, our premium message board. Also, our YouTube channel right here. Again, if you haven't subscribed, we would certainly appreciate you doing so. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all the YouTube content as it drops. Andrew Watt. Andrew. Oh, gosh. Andrew, I'm sorry about that.
It feels like that.
Oh, wow.
It feels like my 5th son.
So geez.
It feels like my 5th child. You're not far off right here, Andrew.
Andrew Bone Watts. Oof. Tim Watts.
That's his
name. I think I'm still Travis Reier. I took a fall earlier last week. I haven't been the same since
I
the
can't wait to
fall
clip
late
this,
last week.
put it on Twitter, pin it to my top, because I'm officially Andrew's daddy.
Oh no, I'm sorry, Andrew. He didn't pay me
I
to
tell
do
him this
that,
all
by
the
the way.
time. I just needed confirmation.
Not like
that
I'm
others
getting
feel the same.
Venmo'd for that slip up, so I had no
I'm
benefit
sure
whatsoever.
I'm sure Tim's excited about that.
He's asking for the edit right now on text. I just got a text. Send edit.
It's our next quote graphic.
Yeah, send that to Hayes. Oh, geez. All right, Tim. All right, Andrew Bone. I am Travis Reier. I just checked, made sure, and we are BamaOnLine.com. Join us alongside. You got Joseph Hastings, you got Clint Lamb, you got Jimmy Stein, and of course, I will never forget Charlie Potter. You talk about salt. I'm not doing that one with Charlie Potter.
Can't forget. That's assault if you forget it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. He'll need a
In all seriousness, we hope you'll join us at BOL. Great stuff with these guys and others. So keep it locked right here to the YouTube channel as well. And until next time, so long, everybody.